This is Rebecca Teasdale with the Embedding Evaluation in Libraries project. And this video focuses on obtaining informed consent from the people who participate in an evaluation at your library. Many evaluations require us to gather data from patrons, community members, or employees. In these cases, we need to take certain steps to protect the rights and privacy of these individuals, and to ensure they're treated with respect. A key part of these protections is obtaining informed consent. Informed consent means that individuals voluntarily agree to participate in our data collection activities. They give their consent. And this is based on a well-informed understanding of what participation will entail. Evaluation ethics require us to obtain informed consent before we gather any data from an individual through a survey, interview, or observation. Depending on the circumstances, we can obtain an individual's consent verbally, in writing, or by providing information and letting participants choose how they want to proceed. When we conduct interviews in libraries, we most often obtain informed consent verbally. And we can think of informed consent as a process or conversation. It's our responsibility to clearly communicate information about our study, answer any questions that participants have, and make sure they fully understand what's being asked of them and are voluntarily agreeing to participate. On the screen, you can see an example of a script we might use to begin the process of obtaining informed consent for an interview. The consent script needs to include 5 points. We need to begin by explaining the purpose of the interview. And we need to describe what participation entails, including the time commitment that's involved. Then we need to disclose any risks associated with participation. In libraries, these are usually negligible. We also need to explain how the information that we gather will be used. And we need to think carefully about this so that we can obtain consent up front. So for example, participants have a right to know if we plan to use their information in a conference presentation or a magazine article, and the right to decline that consent. Finally, we need to explain how participants' confidentiality will be protected. It's our responsibility as the interviewer to ensure that the participant understands the information that we've shared with them and is voluntarily agreeing to participate. We also need to provide the name and contact information of the person that they can follow up with if they have questions later or if they wish to withdraw from the study at a later date. If we want to audio record the interview to help with note-taking, we must explicitly request and receive the participant's permission. We'll need to explain how we're going to use the recording, who will have access to it, and that it will be destroyed once we've finished using it. Only an adult can provide their informed consent. So we'll need to obtain permission from a parent or guardian before we interview a child. We'll also need to obtain the child's permission as well, and that's referred to as obtaining assent. We're going to share the same information with the parent or guardian and the young person, adapting it to be age appropriate. And we'll need both parental consent and youth assent in order to interview the young person. There may be additional guidelines in place at your specific library for obtaining consent when gathering data from children. So you'll need to check with your governing authority for any local requirements. When conducting an anonymous survey, We will begin the survey with a paragraph that provides the information described earlier. An individual's decision to complete the survey is taken as their consent. If the survey gathers identifiable information, then the opening paragraph must also explain how we will protect respondents' confidentiality. In general, parental consent is required if our survey gathers any identifying information from a young person. So again, you'll need to check with your governing authority to determine if there are any specific local requirements that also apply at your library. We might also want to gather data by conducting a formal observation of people as they use library programs and services. For example, we might conduct an observation to gather data about how patrons navigate our picture book collection. Or we might observe a computer class to gather data about the specific skills that participants demonstrate and how those change over the course of the class. When conducting observations of people in the library, we need to post a sign notifying patrons that we're conducting observations and informing them of the purpose of those observations. The sign will also explain how to opt out of the study and who to contact with questions. We'll also need to prepare a handout or website that includes the full information about the study and make that available for anyone who requests it. And if we're observing a program or class, we should also make a brief announcement about the observation. If your library does a lot of evaluations or runs into tricky ethical situations, you may want to seek the guidance of an institutional review board, which is an ethics review committee. This may also be required if you receive certain federal grants that have particular evaluation requirements. In libraries, we would contract with a commercial institutional review board, or IRB, which is similar to the IRBs found in colleges and universities. The commercial IRB would review and monitor your data collection activities to ensure that you're protecting individuals' rights, including properly obtaining informed consent in all of your evaluation activities. To learn more about obtaining informed consent, you can visit a free website called My Environmental Education Evaluation Resource Assistant. This resource is not specific to libraries, but it provides information about obtaining informed consent in similar settings. You can also enroll in fee-based online research ethics training through CITI, the Collaborative Institutional Training Initiative. And for more information about embedding evaluation in your library, you can visit our website at libraryeval.org.